Did you get my point? Your name should be large, full name, all your collaborator, upside down, something.
I will do that in the next talk. So in this talk I'm going to present the millimetric observations of Volvet water content sources. And as Olga already mentioned, these kind of objects are in between the HV phase to planetary level. They trace the collimated jets of post-HV sources. And for example, this source has a large velocity in the water mass emission. And as also Olga said, there are only 14 water content sources known to date. So they are also difficult to image in the optical and infrared wavelengths due to their thick envelopes. But there are few images in the optical region. Here we can see the bipolarity and also the dark lane waste here. This could be suggest a disk or a torus. And also there are some images in the mid-infrared made by Lagavec et al. And this is also showing the bipolarity of these kind of sources. So our main motivations to do the observations in the millimeter and submillimeter wavelengths is because the gas-induced emission mapping will provide us a direct determination of the circumstellar environment. So also the modeling of the spectral energy distribution from infrared to millimeter wavelengths allow us to determine or at least constrain some parameters like the central star luminosities or the circumstellar masses, or in some cases also the distances. So there are all scarce continuum data at millimeter and submillimeter wavelengths in these kind of sources, except for this one that is the fourth type of the water content. This has millimetric observations. There are also 4 other sources that were observed but they don't detected. And we modify some models used in the geostellar objects in order to use them to fit the spectral energy distribution of this water content. In this point, I must say that I actually work in geostellar objects. I think that's why I get this great look, not like anyone else. And before I present my work, I talk about some 2 previous modeling of these sources. One, the prototype. It is the spectral energy distribution fitted by multiple components, like the angular disk and a torus and a bipolar lobes and an envelope. They, Morikawa and Izumura, made these fits to the spectral energy distribution, but they didn't take into account these measurements in the millimeter wavelength. And also another example of an evolved star is the protoplanetary nebulae 22036 that was modeling by Takai and collaborators. And they modeled this spectral energy distribution like separate black holes, each one with certain temperature. They consider a cold envelope, a warm envelope, a hot inner disk, a component with large and cold grains, and the fitting was very good. They consider they did consider the millimeter observations of this source. So the observations that we did, we performed millimeter observations using the iron kilometer telescope facilities at 1.2 millimeter, and also we did interferometric observations using the Australian telescope compact array at these 2 wavelengths. The main results are here. The fluxes in the 1.2 millimeter is here, and then the 3.3 millimeter, and then the 3.0 millimeter. These are 11 of the water of the 14 water content candidate. So as I said before, one parameter that we have to know is the distance. For example, for these three sources, they have the annual parallax distance measured. And this is an important parameter because if we didn't know this one, we can prove any kind of parameters to fit the spectral energy distribution. For the rest of the sources that we don't have the annual parallax distances, we use the kinematic distance. So the first thing that we did was to compile all the data from literature from these instruments and complete it with our observations. This is the 1.2 millimeter observation from IRAM, and these blue crosses are the observations from ARCA. This is the prototype water contact. Here we only show two of the sources of our sample, and our main aim is to model the spectra from 3 microns to millimeter wavelength range. So this we cannot pretend to fit the emission from this part of the spectral energy distribution because this emission comes from this category. So our first attempt to model and to fit the data of these sources was to consider an expanding envelope that is hitting from the star. So the general picture is a central star with an expanding envelope. We set the radius of the envelope to 10 to the 4 AUs. And we also have these bipolar cavities where the opening angles of these cavities are 20 degrees. And the temperature of the expanding envelope is calculated from radiative equilibrium. The models were made by Kenyon, Calvert, and Hammer applied for John stellar object, but we modify it to have in an expanding, to be expanding. So as we can see here, we can fit the infrared peak of the spectral energy distribution only with the expanding envelope. And we can also see here the peak we can fit very well. But as we can see, we cannot fit the millimeter emission from these sources. So our next attempt was to consider another component that is called a disk or maybe a torus. So the general picture here is the central star with a disk and then an expanding envelope. We assume that we have this disk because of these optical images that shows the dark length here. So we adapt for consider the disk, we adapted flared passage disk made by also by John to apply for John stellar objects. We set the radius of the disk to be 750 AUs. In both cases, with the disk and in the envelope, we use a dot grain mixture that includes silicates and graphites of millimeter sizes. So as we can see here, if you can see the grid dot line, this is the emission from the disk. And as before, the blue line represents the emission from the envelope. So when we get the total emission with these two components, we can fit very well the millimeter emission in this, as we can see in these plots. So we need these components here to be able to fit the millimeter data. So, as I said before, this is two of our samples of complete samples, and I am going to show you the rest of the sources. We have here all the 11 sources fitted. As I said before, this is the emission from the gray line represents the emission of the disk, and then the blue, the emission from the envelope, and the solid line represents the total emission. So we were able to fit all the millimeter data except for this one that it only had the upper limits measurements. So as a conclusion, before the conclusion, I'm showing you the obtained parameters of the model of water content. So this is again, in this column represents all the sources. Then we have the luminosity of the star, of the central star, that it goes from 10 to the 3 to 10 to the 4 solar luminosities. We obtain the mass of the envelope in the order of 0.5 solar masses to 2.8 solar masses. And we also have the mass of the disk. As we can see here, almost are massive. That is, we need to fit the millimeter data. We need massive disks. So the total mass is defined as the sum of the mass of the envelope and the mass of the disk. We can see that the total mass, the circumstantial total mass is relatively high. And as I said before, the distance is a very important parameter to get all these parameters. So, for example, in these two sources that has the green asterisk, we use different distances to fit the spectral energy distribution. We realized that if we use the largest kinematic distance of these sources, we couldn't fit the data. So we took for these two sources the shortest kinematic distance recorded. So as can we read here, the parameters strongly depend on the distance. So here are the conclusions. We were able to fit the spectral energy distribution of the 11 watts contents that we observed in the infrared to millimetric wavelengths using two components, an expanding envelope and a circumstellar disk. We obtained that the central star luminosity of the watts of contents are in the range of 10 to the 3 to 10 to the 4 solar luminosities. The mass of the envelope that we get is in the range of 0.3 solar masses to 2.8 solar masses. And in order to fit the millimeter data, we require a massive disk, as massive as 2.5 solar masses. This is suggesting us that the progenitors are relatively high mass. So the modeling and the obtained parameters are strongly dependent on the distance. In some cases, the fit will help us to derive a distance of the source. So that's it. Thank you.
Yes.
Until very recently, in these sources, CO emission or molecular emission has been detected. I was wondering if anyone knows why it has been so difficult to detect molecular emission around these objects. They are supposed to be massive and have lots of stuff around it where the shocks are being produced, and I've been wondering why they are so weak in CO emission. Does anyone know?
I can try to answer that. So the CO searches have been made for large samples, these samples. One is an observational difficulty because all of them are pretty close to the active, right? So you have a lot of interstellar contamination. So, but that's not all of the story. The RV, for example, 16342 has been detected, but it is weak. And my explanation is that the gas is cool. It's optically thick and cool. Can I now ask my question?
So you answer him now.
Yes.
You talk to him, he will go to us.
So this is the question. First a comment, by the way, thanks for showing our work on 22036, but I just wanted to point out that that's not black bodies, those are photoelectric transform bodies. Yeah, so those are not additional black bodies. And the second thing is that, of course, you said the distance is a problem, but of course the ratio of your disk to envelope mass does not depend on distance. The ratio of the disk to envelope mass is much less sensitive or probably not sensitive to distance. So that's an independent quantity which you can derive.
Yes.
And the last thing I'd like to say is that the fact that you're finding large masses is quite is quite consistent with the fact that the isotope ratio 12C to 13C is objects like some of these which have been measured are quite low compared to 6 to 3, which also suggests hot water burning, and therefore the progenitor masses are 4 to 5 solar masses.
So I just had a question also about the disk. So the disk flares because intercepting starlight from the central source. But I guess my question is, do you just neglect the envelope when you set the disk up and then paste an envelope on top of the disk, or are you doing something more sophisticated where you're looking at scattering through the envelope and then flaring up the disk?
Again,
Sure. So the disk flares because it's absorbing starlight from the central source. It's puffing up and flaring as you go out in radius.
yes.
So are you actually doing something sophisticated where you track the starlight through the envelope, which I mean could be optically thin or scatter light down the disk, or are you just setting the disk up and then pasting and optically thin and expanding envelope on top of that?
The second. Yes, they are not coupled.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, about half, I think, of all the water fountain sources are exactly in the galactic plane, lab B equals 0. How sure are we that those are not young star objects? It seems to me that the class is a mixture of both some true contact P stars and some wire source. Can you comment on that? Or?
No, I don't know. Maybe Morgan, you can know about that? If the water fountain that we showed there are young stellar objects or not? No, I think no. But
He has answers to all questions.
Well, I mean, for those where you can measure the isotope ratios, clear you can make isotope ratios, low 12C to 13C ratios in young stellar objects. That's very clear.
Those are not very many that we know.
Yeah, that's true, but I'm saying these are the ones where we do measure.
Okay, so I have just 2 comments. So one is if you can produce images out of your models and then see how the logs look like.
images of the millimetric continuum emission.
Well, because the disk is very dense, so if you even at the mid-infrared, you see the logs, not the disk itself. The disk will.
In the infrared and the optical, yes, we saw the bipolar.
Yeah, so then if you do that, then that's going to give you the very good constraints of the model. So that's something that I want to.
Is that the next aim to do?
Right, and then the other thing is you said the millimeter excess came from the disk, and that's not quite correct. And then having the large grains, the large grains will forward scatter light, and then this light will go to the most extended region of the shell, and then that's where this cold dust gets formed up a little bit, and that's going to give you the millimeter excess.
Yeah, but it also depends on the size of the dust that we use to fit that.
Right, so you included large dust grains. So those large dust grains will forward scatter stellar light farther into the edge of the shell. So that's going to increase the amount of colder component dust, and that's going to give you more millimeter excess.
Okay, we'll try it. Thank you.
I would like to say this is about the CO emission. Well, really, we have the nebula with 5 solar masses. It's difficult to believe that we don't see, even if it is very cold. Really, many planetary nebulae and protoplanetaries are very cold, and however, you detect a fraction of the solar mass. Really, 5 solar masses is a lot. And also, it's surprising that you may have a disk with 2 solar masses. This is completely different than all we have observed in other planetary and protoplanetary by a factor 1,000. So, really, the conditions you find for these objects are so different from what we see in other planetary and protoplanetary nebulae that I'm very surprised about the results. Also, maybe I have the impression that you are using parameters, characteristic of young objects, and so you detect things that are not adapted to this old stars. Really, 2 solar masses in this is something very, very surprising to me. And really, a nebula with 5 solar masses is very exceptional. Probably it could be the most massive planetary or protoplanetary nebula found today, and not detected in current consecutive.
But for example, just like you always, you said that when the people that was from here told us that you are aware of where was the material aside from it. Yesterday, the people here was wondering where is the material if the stars come from the 8 solar masses, for example. If the protoplasmic really comes from this.
I have a comment for following up this thing. First question though to you is, what is the gas to plus ratio that you use? Okay, so the very first thing is, of course, you have to assume a gas to plus ratio. Typically for stellar envelopes with more stars, ratios are not as low as 100. They're typically 200, 300, 400. Of course, they're not very well measured because you have to be dependent on determining the dust mass and the gas mass, which has not been done very carefully for other objects. So that is one possibility that the gas to gas ratio is different, and therefore the inferred total mass is actually lower if the gas to gas ratio is lower.
Yeah, we can try with using this ratio or higher ratio of gas to dust, but